Live.
Woohoo!
First of all, thank you for joining joining the live. Um, for my audience that's joining, this is Fred Wellman. He is running for Missouri's second congressional district against Republican Ann Wagner. He, of course, has to win the primary first, but he's certainly the front runner. And he also is the host of the weekly Midas Touch podcast on democracy. Thank you
Oh,
for joining us.
oh, it's great to be here, man. I appreciate it. You're nice talking to you at the other side of the world too. So there,
Yeah,
I appreciate you being flexible, brother.
of course.
Mm.
I think that would you mind telling us a little bit about your background and why, due to all the chaos happening in Washington, why you'd want to leap into that? I
That's a great question. I get that question a lot, man. I do. It's
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, here's the thing. The thing about running for Congress is it really makes you look at your life because people are constantly asking your bio, guide yourself. And it's funny, as we talk more and more, the thread through most of my life, honestly, has been service, right? So I was raised by a World War II Marine father who taught us very young that if you wanted something, you had to work for it. When I wanted to have some money in high school, so we'll go get a job. So I ended up being a busboy at 14 at our local country club. And then I volunteered locally, and then I went in the Army. I went to West Point. I served 22 years in the Army. In the Army, I went to war 4 times. I went to Ranger School as a captain in the Army because I wanted to understand my partners on the ground better. I was a pilot at the time, as an aviator. And again, I got out of the Army. I started a company that focused on veterans issues and helping corporations help veterans. Again, serving my community again, right? And then when COVID hit, some friends of mine were going to New York to run a COVID field hospital staffed by special operations veterans. And me being me, they said, "Yeah, we need somebody to do admin." I said, "Well, I could do that." And I got in my car, drove to New York City in the middle of a pandemic. Again and again, I moved back here to St. Louis, my hometown. I moved back here in 2021, right as Kabul fell. I'd never been to Afghanistan, but I knew how to organize. So our local International Institute, the refugee place, I helped organize all the donations, and that's sort of the thread is the idea that when the country's called, or the community's called, for reasons I can't explain in my DNA, is to step up and help. And so last fall or last spring, when the big billionaire bill passed, as I call it, I was sitting there and I've got this amazing. I see so many of my friends from Substack here. Thank you for joining us, everybody. I had Substack with 50,000 people. I have 1 million followers on social media. I have the Midas Touch show that gets, 100,000 views a week, which ain't bad, But I
Not
said to
bad, no.
myself, is that enough? Right? Is this all I can do? I'm never going to be you or Aaron Parnas. I'm never going to be one of the cool kids. I'm not going to be an influencer at 60, but I can fight. And so I took a good hard look at my home district and our 13-year Republican incumbent, who's done very, very little for the district, never even held a town hall. I mean, is kind of a great way of showing just how little she's done for our district. And I said, I could run here. I could make a difference here. And I pulled together a great team. I called a lot of friends. I even see one of them here, Denver Riddle's on the list. He's one of the people I called and said, "Hey, you think this is crazy?" And guys like him and my friend like Senator Andy Kim and Seth Moulton and Greg Landsman and others and Joe Trippi, who's the general consultant for my campaign, they all said, "Yeah, Fred, you can win and you can win this thing. You can run and win." And so I'm running to win. I'm running to flip a seat that has been in my opponent's hands for 13 years with very little to show for it. But even worse, 33 years of Republican control with very little to show for it. And so I am running because I believe my community needs help. I believe that I've been very blessed with the life experience and the opportunity to do that because of where I am in life. My kids are grown. I'm somewhat successful. I've got free healthcare from the government. Thank you, United States Army. So here I am, and it's going well. I mean, people are reacting to that. They know, they want somebody who's willing to fight for them, and I am a fighter.
Well, thank you for joining the fight. It's a huge it's amazing that you're joining because obviously often I hear like whenever I hear an interview with someone else doing an interview of like a candidate, they're like, why? Because like it's a very chaotic time. Um And I think that, but also at the same time, I think that that's exactly why we need people like you to be joining the forces, so we have more normal people in Congress that aren't.
Well, let's not get carried away.
Yeah,
Normal. Oh, okay. Just a normal person run for Congress. Come on, let's go. Come on, Elon.
yeah, that's fair. Fair enough.
None of this is normal, my friend.
That is true. I wanted to. So you mentioned obviously you're running against Anne Wagner. She's been in
Yes.
office for over a decade and done
Yep.
really not haven't hasn't really
Very
done
little.
much.
No.
What are the obviously there's a new map that in the last 24 hours has been kind of in some ways kind of weirdly enacted despite the despite the referendum having enough
It's very,
signatures.
very delicately handled, my friend.
Given because my understanding is that there was a referendum to try to retroactively keep the map from going to place for this year,
Right.
and
It's an initiative, actually.
and that
So
has received enough signatures.
yes, yes.
But
So
Secretary of
yeah,
State has delayed because he legally can delay until August 4th, right?
yeah.
And
You've done your homework, brother.
August 4th is the primary, so if he waits until the last day, even the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court rules that like you have to proceed. They could argue, well, it's too late. We already have the primary. Like, what are we gonna do about it?
Yep.
Um, and this just seems like we've already seen two states already kind of mess up in the middle of the primary when
Right.
people have already started voting
Oh, I
Louisiana,
mean,
Alabama.
here's the scenario. I mean, here's one weird scenario. A weird scenario is I have to run on the new map for the primary and the old map for the general. That's one of the scenarios we're looking at. So the way it works here in Missouri is we have a wonderful tradition of a ballot initiative petition system where we can actually veto laws passed by our legislature. And they, of course, convened a special session, extraordinary session, they call it, where they literally jammed through this map. I mean, they jammed it through. I mean, they
Really
completely
extraordinary.
yeah, they bulldozed. It is extraordinarily bullshit. They bulldozed the Democrats. They passed this ridiculous map that cuts out Emmanuel Cleaver. For my district, on the other side of this, their big goal was Emmanuel Cleaver. On my side, so they split up Kansas City. On my side of the state, my opponent, they really couldn't move it too much. It's complicated, but in the end, they gave her just a little bit more wiggle room. It's not enough to save her, not this time. And they've done this before for Aunt Wagner. They redistricted to save her 5 years ago, too, or 4 years ago. Again and again, they keep trying to save her. It ain't gonna help. But having said all that, we did gather more than enough petitions, signatures, over 300,000 from all the districts, like the law says. They submitted them way back in December, well on time. And the Secretary of State, Denny Hoskins, who is a super MAGA, super I'm trying to find a clean word. I couldn't come up with any. Not a great guy. And so what he has done is he's dragged his feet, right? And the goal is to drag his feet as long as possible. So there is a more than even chance. And so what the Supreme Court said yesterday was that, look, this ruling, it's thrown out, which sucks because it was a good word. But the other one is we really can't make a decision yet because the Secretary of State hasn't certified the petitions yet. And so there is a scenario, and I believe what will happen is Mr. Hoskins will drag his feet. So there is a scenario where I'm running all over. What it does to me as a challenger is this. It almost doubles the geographic size of my district, which is insane, right? It goes much further west, much further south. Beautiful area. I mean, I love the new district. I've hiked there for 5 years. I grew up. This is where I grew up. You know, I've hiked in these. It's the St. Francis Mountains, which are beautiful. This is like the foothills of the Ozark where they start. It's a beautiful, beautiful region with beautiful, decent people who need real representation, and I will fight for their vote. However, for a challenger. So do I fight my butt off for those votes and then have to change my entire campaign and go back north again to the two counties to the north and the other side of the Missouri River? It's really a game to protect incumbents like my opponent, Ann Wagner, who is sitting on $4.5 million, just biding her time until August 5th. And then she's going to drop all this money on her opponent. So it really puts us in a tricky position. Now, having said that, bring it. I honestly, I bring it. It's not going to save you. We have a MRP poll, which is a regression analysis poll from a company called Focal Data that shows the new district is D+4. That's not going to save her. People are angry. They're tired of the economy going to crash. They're tired of being ignored by Washington, D.C. The agriculture, by the way, they stupidly added more agricultural to my district. It probably doubled or tripled the number of farmers I have in my district. You know, farmers are pissed right now. And
Yeah.
I know because they're telling me, right? So
Yes.
in a lot of ways, their master move could very well end up flipping more than one seat. because they're doing such a bad job of governing. And the job for me as a candidate is to explain that to people. Say, look, I know you voted Republican your whole life, or maybe you did, maybe you've sat out. We have a problem with demoralization. People are burned out, man. They're tired of these games, right? And I got to motivate them to come in, vote, participate in the election, and win. But look, here's how I look at it, Eli, is the same energy that brought 9,000 people out for the last No Kings rally on Manchester Road, the middle of my district, and 4,000 to the south. The same energy brought 7,000 people out in a thunderstorm before that. If we can
Wow.
keep that energy going, literally a thunderstorm, like lightning bolts hitting the ground near us during the No Kings protest. If that energy, if we can carry that energy into the election, we're going to win. And they're scared. And that's why they're doing this. They see that people, they've been demoralized for 6 or 7 years now. And now they see they're not, and they're going to be led to victory. And they need people like me, I think, who are saying, hey, we're rolling our sleeves up, literally. We're going to go to work. We're not going to hug it out with cowards. I'm not here to reach across the aisle to people who are trying to suppress our votes. I'm not going to reach across the aisle. They're taking away women's rights to health care. I'm not reaching across the aisle to someone who thinks they can crack our black districts and take away disenfranchised black voters. I am not reaching across the aisle that are attacking our transgender and LGBTQ community. So, look, if you want to work with me on good policy, I'll work with you for the 750,000 people that elect me. But I'll be goddamn if I'm going to try and reach across the aisle with people who are smearing and hurting and actually damaging my community. And I think that's what people are looking for right now.
I That makes a lot of sense to me. I think that I say this not to be mean to Anne Wagner, but also who cares? What like is there anything at all that she has done in the last 13 years?
It's
What
very little. I mean, very
does
little. I
she
mean,
what does she do for her district?
it's shocking how often I talk to like elected leaders at the city level, the state level. Obviously, I don't know if you know, but Missouri's local officials are nonpartisan. For a municipality in Missouri, like Georgia, is the same way. They're
Yeah.
nonpartisan. And so I'm very careful. I don't want to get them involved in partisan politics, but I'll talk to them. And I talked to one city council member for one of our cities, and he's like, Fred, I came in office, and Ann Wagner sent her staff down to meet us. She didn't show up, of course. And they started the meeting by saying, hey, just want you guys to understand that the member doesn't believe in pork belly spending, so don't ask for money. And this is a city that has a desperate erosion problem. They're the largest municipality as far as geographically in the district, and they're like, we need federal help to cut roads. We need federal help to carry these multiple rivers that go through our city. And they're like, well, what's your purpose then? Why are you here? Like, well, in case your citizens need help with, flags, the VA, passports, and these guys are looking at her like, look at this kid like, are you freaking high, dude? Like so basic customer service. And so it is just that's how it becomes. She's known, people talk a lot about the town hall thing, whatever. What I'm mad about is you won't even do the basic answer the phone for your constituents. I've talked to all the labor unions, all of them. I'm so blessed. Many of our labor unions who sat out the last two elections for their reasons, they're not sitting out this one. I've got the sheet metal workers endorsed us, electrical workers endorsed us. Really proud the Teamsters Joint Council endorsed us, and the reason is they're so frustrated that they call her and don't get anything. She doesn't return their calls, doesn't care about their issues. She has no interest whatsoever in helping them. So I think one of the biggest things I'm saying, it's such a simple thing, man. It's like I just want to go represent you, all 750,000 of you. And I'm never going to check if you voted for me. I'm never going to check if you donated to me. I just want to go and represent you. And I think people are so hungry for someone who knows their job is to go to DC and work for them and not for the banks, which is what my opponent does, not for their corporate donors, which is what my opponent has. Over half her money is from corporate PACs, from the financial industry. No, I'm not taking corporate PAC money. That's easy. I'm going there because I want to represent the people of Missouri's second district. And these assholes can change the lines all they want. I don't care. If the lines mattered, they wouldn't change them all the time. I'm running to support the people of Missouri and Washington, D.C. because they are so hungry for representation.
Again, thank you for that. I think that when um, I'm 20 years old, I started working in campaigns when I was almost 13, and
The baby.
I working to get, my then Republican Congresswoman, Claudia Tenney,
Oh, yeah.
she's now moved to another part of the state
Yeah.
and terrorized her constituents somewhere else. And so so we had a very similar situation, not never really held a town hall, um, never held a town hall until my candidate that I was working for forced her to by he every town hall that he did, he had a paper life-size cutout of her at every town hall, and people could write whatever notes they wanted to
Yep.
and put it on the note, and then they sent those and then they brought those notes to her field office.
Yep.
Very
Which is
similar
never
shit.
open here. So you can't even do that because it won't even be
And
open when you go.
so you have that,
Yeah.
and so that was also an issue. Eventually, she just closed down the offices for normal working hours. But
Yep.
look, that was my entrance into politics, and I helped get the person that beat her in that election, Anthony Brandisi, who's now
Yeah.
a judge, elected, and he actually is a he helped me get into college by giving me recommendations. So that was a nice
Yeah.
connection that I had with him. But that's how I started. So I'm very sympathetic to the awful congressperson
Yeah.
and not and unfortunately we're seeing a lot of people town halls. Obviously last year we had Republican um House campaign chair tell the members don't do town halls when we were doing the ACA debate, which
Yeah.
very conveniently for the Republicans has seems to have exited the debate in terms of the everyday like it was a year ago,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
unfortunate. Um, but I grew up in a very rural area, so like I think that my next question was going to be oftentimes Democrats write off rural America. They either they don't understand why they're losing rural America when they don't write it off. They're like,
I agree.
well, we're saying all like we've done all these policies. Why aren't they voting for us?
Right.
And so obviously this is your home turf. Why do you
Yeah.
think that Democrats are losing, and what are you doing differently to get them
Well,
to support?
I'll start the last part of that question. My friends in the Democratic Party, something I've criticized us for many years in our party is we bring a policy pen to a gunfight, right? I mean, it's like I literally, I'm not gonna say who it was, but when I was thinking about running someone else, I'll leave that. I'll try to be very vague here. When I told this person I was running, I said, "Well, may the best policies win." And I smiled and I said, "You actually think that's the issue, don't you?" Look, we're Democrats. We stand by certain things. It is more than that. You have to fight for people's vote. You have to ask a person for the vote. You have to be present for a person to get their vote. It isn't just enough to say, "Hey, here's my great policy. Look at this list of things that are going to make your life better." It's not how the human nature works. That's not how humans engage with the real world, right? It's not enough for me to mail you my policy list and go, "Oh well, oh yeah." If people are not that conscious, they're not that plugged into these things. They're or trying to explain a policy how it's going to affect my life in 10 years. By the way, when you're fighting lies, like Donald Trump saying he's going to bring inflation down, but instead he's made it 1,000 times worse. I'm never going to start a war. Well, we're in the middle of a war. So it's more than that. You have to run ever. So when I started my campaign, I had certain principles. I told my campaign team, and I spent a whole summer. So before I decided to run, I spent a summer studying it, looking at the race, looking at where I stood. I said, number one thing for me is when I finish this race, I have to be the same guy. I mean, I have to be able to look in the mirror and say, here's my values. Here's what I stand for as a man. I'm 60 years old. I've changed a lot in my life. I'm not the guy I was when I was 18. I've got a lifetime experience and this is who I am. And I'm not changing that to win this race. If I win this race and I can look myself in the mirror that I'm still the same man, that was number one. Number two, we're running everywhere. It is a big district. Missouri's second district, as it stands, well, yesterday or today, who knows? Well, is 83% white, but is also the most affluent district in Missouri. It stretches from the western county and southern county of St. Louis County all the way westward about 75 miles plus to some beautiful, beautiful places. There's 5 rivers. The reason my logo behind me here has a river in it because I've got the Mississippi, Merrimack, Missouri, Gasconade, Bourbon rivers. It's a beautiful place with a diverse people. There's mining. We produce the best silica in the world. Missouri silica is sought after in Japan and elsewhere for everything from chips to fine glass. That's produced right in Pacific Missouri, right? We've got a wonderful district, and they need somebody who's going to fight for them. So we are running everywhere for that reason. We just said too many times it's about ceding ground to our opponents. It's about not being present. And in a state Missouri where you haven't been running Democratic candidates, people are running against Republican. So they're trying to vote for the least bad Republican, and you create a scenario where no Democrats are present. And so we have made a very conscious decision here in my race that we will run everywhere. And look, Will I win? I don't know. Warren County? I don't know. Probably not. But if I don't lose 80-20, if I only lose 60-40, I'm a congressman. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but I'm present and it matters. And the people who are Democrats there will feel seen and they'll say, wow, this party cares about me. This party is present for me. Because in the end, we're just humans and humans want to be seen. Humans want to be heard. They want a candidate that isn't just about saying I love your policy or I stand for you, but showing up and being present for them. And I think I say a lot in my speeches that the job is the title, representative. You got to
Yes.
represent. I'm representing 750,000 up to 800,000 people now, depending on what numbers you use. That's a lot of people who need someone who understands their lives. And that means being present. That means going out there. One of the things that drives my campaign crazy, man, is on a Sunday, I'll just go somewhere. My wonderful fiance, she's like, yeah, I know you want to go, just go. And one day I drove all the way out to Sullivan, Missouri, which is the far western portion of my district. Beautiful little town, very Republican. It's okay. I went to a bar. It's a veteran-owned brewery. And I sat at the bar just by myself. I didn't have any campaign swag. I was just me. And I'm sitting there, and the bartender starts to, it turns out she's the wife. It's owned by two veterans, a Marine and a sailor, right? Veterans. And the wife of the Marine runs the front end, and they're lovely. Her whole family was there that day. They just had a baby. And I started talking to her. She goes, well, who are you? Well, I'm running to be your congressman. She's like, oh my God, I've never. And we started talking. And I just started asking, I tell you about your life as a business owner here. Well, how do you guys get health care? She goes, well, my husband's a veteran. So he's got VA. I said, how about you? She goes, I'm a Medicaid. Missouri Net, we call it here. So she had 4 kids on Medicaid, and she's running a very successful business with Medicaid. Now, is she lazy? Is she a deadbeat? Because if you listen to our Republican opponents, they're telling you that these people getting Medicare and Medicaid are lazy 20-year-old men getting free healthcare, or people who should be pulling themselves about the bootstraps. These people run a business. They can't afford their business, the margin being so thin, they can't afford healthcare. So she's got Medicaid. And I'm sick to death of seeing the Republicans and others smear good people who are working for a living, earning salary, being smeared by people who have no interest whatsoever in understanding their lives. And so that's why it's so important that Democrats like me drive our happy asses all the way out to Sullivan, Missouri or St. Clair. Coming home that day, I went to the Casey General store, the gas station, and the gentleman checking me out looked like me, dude. He was like, he had a goatee, but he looked like me, my age, gray. And I was kind of like, okay, why is there this gray hair guy working as a clerk at Casey General? And I said to him, hey, tell me about your life, man. What's your story? What keeps you up at night? That's the money question for some people, right?
Yeah.
What keeps you up at night? And the money question for him was retirement, Fred, because I've been working 48 years and I will never be able to retire ever. And that's a sin, man. I mean, that's a sin. And the fact that we have people representing us in Congress and the Senate and the White House now who have never once stood at the checkout line at the grocery store and had to look at their debit card, open their bank account, and wonder if the two are going to match their grocery cart, right? Had they ever has Ann Wagner, my opponent, who's worth $26 million in her stock portfolio. Okay, she's quadrupled it in office. I don't believe for 1 second that someone like my opponent has ever stood in a grocery store and had to open her bank account and wonder if she could pay for groceries. But that's the story of Americans today at all income levels, not just the rich, not just the poor. Or the 67 PNC Bank did a study that showed 67% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck last October. That's everybody, man. That's 2/3 of America. I think we should have people in Congress who, like you say, go out to our rural areas, go out to our more depressed areas and understand their lives, and then go to Congress and understand what it's like to be smeared for that, right? To be smeared because your husband lost his job, to be smeared because your wife got cancer. And so now you're less than. Oh, you had to declare bankruptcy. You're a bad man. No, everybody's right at the breaking point. So for me,
Donald Trump has declared bankruptcy many times.
multiple times. Now I get hit for it. I lost everything. I lost everything on 9/11. I was a very highly paid consultant. My ex-wife was a flight attendant for Delta. Guess what happened on 9/11? She got laid off and I got mobilized back in the Army that day. And everything went to shit. And 3 months later, like a lot of Americans, we were broke. And then I owned a business. I took a loan to build out a California office in what was that year? Oh, 2020. This may not have been a good idea. And the pandemic hit and we lost almost all of our clients, but 1 or 2. and the business failed. Am I proud of that? No. Am I ashamed of that? No. I've lived a life, and I would like to see people in Washington, D.C. who have lived lives. And hopefully that's a message that resonates with people in our district.
I think that that's definitely a message that um would resonate. I would hope so.
I hope so.
Um,
I'm
I
trying,
think
man.
I wrote a piece earlier this week that was definitely divided my subscriber base, because it was about the redistricting
Yeah,
efforts by Democrats. I'm personally of the view that obviously I don't support lying down when Republicans are attacking us, but I also
yeah,
don't know how much time and money fighting on the margins with a district here, district there in various different states is necessarily gonna be effective rather than spending that money to actually do what you're doing right now, which is go into these communities and um it's because I think that oftentimes we can expand our base. We can expand our gettable districts by running in these districts, putting money into these districts, campaigning these districts a lot more than changing the maps for like 2 4 years and spending like hundreds of millions of dollars, which is the new plan by Leader Jeffries. And so I think that, but also at the same time, like, is it fair to say we're not going to redistrict anymore while we know that states
right.
like North Carolina. So it's
Yeah,
a very complicated thing. I don't know how I feel. I'm more of the side of like, let's try to campaign. That should be the more focused. That should be where the money and time and lawsuits money is going. Try to block the laws, try to block the ongoing things. But I was wondering what you thought, obviously, because you,
yes and
yeah,
yes. This is a classic. I agree with you, but I disagree with it. I also agree with you. It is. Well, you're absolutely right. Look, the fact is, our Republican opponents have no shame. I don't believe many of them have any moral compass whatsoever. They will steal an election in a heartbeat. They'll steal. They'll lie. They'll cheat. And the one thing I learned working for Republicans, so I was a Democratic staffer at the Lincoln Project, and I worked for Republicans, some of the toughest Republicans you've ever imagined. I worked for Steve Schmidt. I worked for Rick Wilson. I worked for Reed Galen. These are guys who know their business, right? And the one lesson they kept saying that I never forget is this: this is what Republicans know and Democrats don't. None of your great policies matter if you lose the election. Okay. None of
yeah,
your great ideas, none of your 10-point policy stuff matters if you keep losing elections. Republicans' entire machine is built to win elections from school board to city council to county to state. They build a bench. They're running people up and down the ticket. They're changing the maps. They're manipulating the freaking, system all they can. So I believe there's a certain point where we either got to play that game just as hard, or we're going to be irrelevant and put out of power forever. We're at a point now. So I understand what you're saying about spending money. Because look, as a candidate, I need money. I mean, look, we're spending a lot of money these initiative petitions that with a lot of rich people in the state who aren't giving me money. I mean, it is a problem because we do these initiative petitions, these ballot measures every time, and every year it does hurt candidates like me who need money. I admit that. But as a man who believes in a moral compass, I say, if we don't stand up and fight and use their tools against them. Are you a fan of Andor? Right? If you've watched Star Wars, right? Andor, there's a great soliloquy done by one of the main characters about how he has to use the tools of his enemy to defeat them. And I believe we're at that point. And it's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for people like you and me who believe in doing the right thing at all costs. But at some point, all of our moral compasses and all of our fights, if we keep losing and allowing them to have power, I used to joke with my son when my son and I both worked at the Lincoln Project. He worked for me, and which they hired him, not me. It's a story, but anyway. But we used to joke at the Lincoln Project that it would be so great when we're sitting in the gulag together and saying, well, at least we at least we kept the moral high ground. You know what I mean? It's like your moral high ground does you no good when you're in a gulag. And I think at some point we have to understand the stakes of what we're fighting. Where our opponents are in my God, in Louisiana, they canceled an election in the middle of the election.
in the middle of when people were already voting at the
Hundreds,
time.
thousands of votes, like, F it, we're not gonna do it. How do you fight that by saying, "Oh, that's unfair. Oh, we're not." Okay, you can't. So you gotta
No,
fight fire with fire. So you know what? And this is the second thing of this whole question too, I wanna get you straight. Problem with us as a Democratic Party sometimes is we're afraid of power. We're afraid to use when we have power, we're afraid
yes.
to use it. Mr. Biden, for his many talents, was afraid of power. He thought that he was even when he took off, he's like, "Oh, bipartisan, bipartisan." That's great, but here we are now, right? here we are now. And so we have to, when we have power, take it. It's a saying in the army is when in command, take command. And I think that's part of my frustration with our party too, is like, look, if you have the moment, if we win this election, if we flip the House and the Senate, which I believe we will, we better use that power and not be afraid. Not, I don't want to hear, oh, Fred, let's see how many Republicans we get. If I've got the votes on my side, screw them. I don't want them. Right? We've got to be very direct in using the power given to us by the American people, because they're giving us that power because they expect us to put it to good use. And so we have to. So, long answer to a short question is simply, yeah, I agree. I'm not at all comfortable with gerrymandering. I'm not at all comfortable. And we've been offering bills for 20 years to make gerrymandering illegal, and our opponents don't want it. So at
That's
some point,
true.
we either keep on banging our head on the wall or fight fire with fire. And look, I'm willing to go down in history as a guy who did whatever he had to do to win, because we just need people in Washington who are being understand their mission is to save the republic, save the economy, save working people over billionaires and corporations, and use that power for good, instead of saying, well, at least I had the moral high ground till the very end. You know what I'm saying? And you can still have both. I believe in my heart. I was a soldier for 22 years. The day I got to West Point, the first class we got was Military Science 101, and you teach the Geneva Convention. They teach you how to fight war correctly. And I did my entire career, and I'm proud of that. So you can fight a war in a moral way, right? You know, you
Yeah.
can fight a war by following rules. I believe we can fight this political battle in the right way, but we have to have courage. We have to have precision. We have to not be afraid of using our power when it's available to us. We have to win elections. Win elections. Start there.
Yes. I think that one thing I wanted to ask is that, um, this is more of an inside baseball question, and I apologize for it, but I feel like
No,
it's
no.
something that people
My
are
campaign team,
very
they don't
passionate
like me
about.
talking about. Mm.
Um, would you when you get elected, would you support Hakeem Jeffries as the next Democrat leader?
I was just asked that today. I like Hakeem Jeffries. I do. I've had the privilege to meet him. I've seen him speak a number of times. He's an eloquent speaker. He's a very good
Yes.
leader. He's a careful leader. I am concerned that in this moment we need a
He's too
wartime
careful?
leader. Right. I believe that Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Schumer have been raised in a different era of politics. And I don't believe that they are effectively managing this era of politics. And this era of politics is having to do hard things. It's having to use power when you have available to it. It's having to use the tools in your toolbox that are down there at the very bottom, and they're kind of dank. And that really gross part of your toolbox that you have in the garage
Yeah.
that's kind of got some rust in it. And there's this tool you haven't used in 20 years because it doesn't work that great, but it's the right one for this tool. And you don't want to use it because you got this new one. I'm not sure that Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Schumer especially are comfortable going to the bottom of the toolbox and using every single toolbox at their disposal, even the janky ones. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And
that makes
so at
sense.
this moment, I'm willing to go to Washington, D.C. I will certainly listen to the arguments, see who's running, and support them. But unless Mr. Jeffries is willing to say, I'm rolling my sleeves up, and this is where we're going to get, this is my agenda, this is how we're going to do it, this is how we're going to fight. But right now, I'm not seeing it. And how do you see it? Well, I won't, you know, I look around and I'm asking for where my national help is, and they're not giving it to us. So I do have
Yeah.
questions about how things are being led right now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, obviously the DCCC has their Red to Blue program. I was gonna ask, has your race been added to that?
No, we're their target race. They have 31 races that are in their target group. They have done 2 iterations of red to blue. Our race has not been one of them. They have selected some races that are far more red than mine. So their formula is their formula. I'm not going to question that. But I'll tell you, I told you I had certain principles I had when I started this campaign. Principle number 2 was we're on our own. That
Yeah.
Missouri would not been in a super minority for Democrats for 23 years. This district wouldn't have been in Republican hands for 33 years if we hadn't been abandoned by everybody who says they're our friends. And so if we accept that from the day we start our campaign, that we are on our own, we're going to get to 50.1 if nobody helps us. And then that's how we're doing it. We're trying to motivate people here in Missouri. We're trying to motivate national people who know me from my national work and say, hey, we need your help here. But I have no expectations that anyone from outside is going to come save us. Because if they had, we wouldn't be in a super minority, and we wouldn't have a district that's been Republican for 3 years. So while I welcome and I hunger for their support, I hunger for the red to blue, I hunger for other organizations which remain nameless. I've been endorsed by VoteFets. Our unions are coming in incredibly strong force after sitting out the last 2 elections. Um, we're getting a lot of support here. We're getting a lot of friends who are coming in. My friends who I've worked with, incredible number of individual members. My God, Senator Andy Kim, Chris DeLugio, Jim McGovern, Ted Lieu, Jared Huffman, Eugene Vindman. I mean, Nikki Baczynski. I mean, we're picking up all these wonderful members who are coming to our help and
Yes.
offering us assistance. But my philosophy is a very simple one. We are on our own. We'll run a race that wins. And if they come in, great. I would love to have their help. We could use the help. I could use canvassers to knock all these doors in this highest district. I could really use help with IE against my opponent who's gotten away with stark murder for years because no one's holding her accountable for her failures for the district. But in the end, we will run a campaign that wins, which is why I need support. So all you fine people watching this, 93 of you, I'd be forever grateful if you consider a donation. But we're gonna win this. We're gonna do it the hard way, which is grinding, telling people the truth, and then being present for them.
Yeah, so, is there anything, when you get elected that you would do differently, that you think that Democrats are doing wrong on an issue that you think Republicans are doing better in terms of at least policy-wise? Or is there anything that you agree with Republicans on, anything you disagree with Democrats on? And also the second part of the question is there a member of Congress on the Democratic side that you would say that you would be most closely, like, in terms of, like, how you would serve as a member, like?
Yeah, start the back and work by forward. I'm very fond of our friends in the New Democratic Coalition. I've been very blessed to befriend a number of them, like Jared Huffman and Ted Lieu. Frankly, the people who have endorsed me are people who I know and I look up to. That's why I've asked their endorsements. Or Greg Landsman. Greg Landsman has in Ohio who's got a fight in his hands. Greg is fighting hard, but he's got incredible policy points. So these are pragmatic leaders who go to Congress to get things done. So if you find me a pragmatic leader whose goal is to get things done for their district, that's who my friends are going to be. And so I named it, like I said, Pat Ryan and Jim McGovern, and these people I look up. Andy Kim. I mean, I'm such a fan of Andy Kim, not just from when he was in Senate, but when he was in the Congress. When you remember, Andy Kim's the guy who was on his hands and knees cleaning up after January 6th. I mean,
Yes.
I'm a hero. He's one of my heroes of public office. So any of those folks who are your pragmatic people, I tell people I'm not going to tell my constituents the sun and the moon and the stars. I'm not going to promise them things I can't get done. I'm not going to say, we're going to have a chicken in every pot and a car, a Mercedes in every car. I can't do it because I want them to hold me accountable in 2 years if I don't accomplish the things I promised to accomplish. So I'm much more of a person who want to get things done. Having said that, I want to get the big things done. I believe we need to go to Congress and do big things. And that means getting things done. Like that, we have to take a hard look at the National Emergency Act. Clearly, the National Emergency Act is absolutely awful. This is so many presidents these presidents are using it for anything they want to do, and enough is enough of that. So we have to examine that. We have to examine the Insurrection Act because it's being used to threaten American cities. That has to be changed. It's a 200-year-old law. We have to repeal the big beautiful bill, the big billionaire bill. The tariffs have got to go. They're destroying the economy. I was with a businessman yesterday, a wonderful business, the Global Market here in Kirkland, Missouri, my hometown, and where I grew up. And they've been in business for 25 years. It's a global. They have 60,000 line items and they're from 30 countries. Can you imagine right now trying to manage 60,000 products from 30 countries with tariffs being different in every single freaking country and them changing at the drop of a hat for the president who wants to tweet something out or post on Truth Social? That's the kind of stuff we've got to fix very quickly so we have stability in our economy, stability for our small businesses, and stability for the average working Americans to understand what their future holds. And then we do have to address AI in a very real way. One of the things I say a lot is, the big fight here, there's this data centers. Well, that's great. And there's every reason to oppose them or support them, depending where you sit. But in the end, here we are once again fighting over the chump change from billionaires and corporations, right? So
Yeah.
out here in Missouri, we're fighting over where they're going to put an AI data center so that municipality can get a few $1,000,000 for their schools, a couple of jobs. Our union friends can build those things for the next 3 years. But in the end, it's not the issue. The billionaires are making billions of dollars. And we're literally all fighting over probably an industry that's going to destroy our economy eventually. That
Yes.
the very people fighting each other to build these data centers are going to lose their jobs when they're up and running. And these billionaires are telling us to our faces they intend to outsource jobs to AI. And so we're literally we're literally building our own guillotines, right?
Yes.
That's literally what we're doing. They've got us fighting over who gets to build the guillotine to cut our heads off, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we need to have a very real conversation at the national level of what that means and what we're going to do as lawmakers to affect that and regulate it. While everybody says, well, we don't want to lose the AI war to China. I don't know. All I know is China's building factories, and the only thing we're freaking building is data centers. And so we have to have some serious conversations about that. But in
And
the
I
end, final note, because you did ask the very first part of that question, I'm going backwards like I do. My brain works that way. I was asked the very first day I ran by a local reporter. He says, if Josh Hawley comes to you and it's got a good idea that's going to help your district, what are you going to do? You've been very critical of Josh Hawley. I ran a pack briefly attacking Josh Hawley. Um, I'll work with him because in the end, I'm being sent to Washington, D.C. by 750,000 or so people from Missouri's second district to represent their best interests. And if Josh Hawley somehow comes to me with a good idea, which he did recently on a radiation issue we have here from World War
yeah.
II, he
Well, I
passed
know he did
the
that
RICO law. It's a good law.
talk
Then
with.
I will smile at him. I'll shake his hand, and we'll get because in the end, whether I like it or not, I'm not going to Washington D.C. to work for Mr. Jeffries or the Democratic Party. I'm going to Washington D.C. to work for Missouri. And if I can find somebody who wants to do good things for Missouri, then I owe it to my constituents to do good things. And I'll probably take pot shots from the left and pot shots from the right. But in the end, don't you want a representative who goes to DC whose job is to represent you, your best interest? So that is my final stance on that. Is like, look, there's what's the old saying we say, a blind squirrel gets a nut every now and then. Sure, if a
Yeah.
Republican colleague ends up with a good idea that helps my constituents,
Yeah.
I will work with anybody to get that done. But I'm not going to seek it out.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking about taking pot shots from the right and from the left, I wanted to get into foreign policy, because in the last 5 minutes, it was just reported that House Democrats were able to successfully push another discharge petition to
Great.
tie on sanctions on Russia and billions of dollars in Ukraine aid.
Yep.
This is now like the
I'm looking.
200 millionth, thousandth discharge petition that they've succeeded with against Mike Johnson, which says a lot about his lack of leadership.
Yeah.
But obviously, I wanted to get your take on how we best obviously deal with Ukraine. Hopefully, by the time you're in office, this war is over and Ukraine is won. I'm worried that that will not be the case if the war ends because of how Donald Trump has handled um, how we've helped Ukraine. But I also want to get your take on Israel and the Middle East and Iran and that whole situation.
Whew.
So I know that's a big issue,
Well,
but
gotta go. No.
yeah,
Let's start with Ukraine. I will never fail Ukraine. Ukraine is fighting an existential battle for their very existence. Period. Stop. That's it. Russia invaded Ukraine.
yes,
Ukraine didn't egg it on. Ukraine didn't earn it. I don't care about your historic lies or all that bullshit. Ukraine has been attacked by a major power in the region relentlessly, murdering civilians, kidnapping children, raping, killing, pillaging, all the most barbaric, evil things you can imagine. I will never fail Ukraine to support Ukraine. And the fact that that's even a question, that the United States is supporting a country, a democracy fighting for their very existence, disgusts me and is shameful and will be a stain on our country for the rest of our lives. Period. So, Ukraine, the good news is Ukraine is led by real leaders who've done their homework and are fighting a fight. I just saw an article today of the United States Army Chief of Staff saying that the battlefield integration of Ukraine is better than ours. And I'm here to tell you, I agree because I don't know, on day one of this war in Iran, we had multiple soldiers killed and injured by an Iranian drone that should never have gotten that far if we'd listened and learned from our friends in Ukraine who've been
yes.
fighting those exact same drones for 3 years.
Well, now they're
So
helping
it's a
us. Now
stain. Yes.
they're helping
Well,
us
they're
even.
trying to help us.
Yeah.
Hegseth is fighting it because Hegseth's much more interested in making videos and his inane statements and his prayer meetings than actually leading the Department of Defense and our soldiers at war. So
What prayer
we
meetings?
have
I thought he was just
Hegseth is
quoting
a
a Pulp Fiction.
huh?
I thought he was just quoting Pulp Fiction. I wasn't
Yeah, no
realizing he was
shit.
doing prayer
Oh, I
meetings.
tell you, this guy, bringing the D-list celebrities instead of leading our troops, bringing Kid Rock all the way to Washington D.C., bringing the Apaches from Fort Campbell to Fort Belvoir to fly Kid Rock around. Cost us that's a
I
million
thought
millions of dollars.
I thought that was an AI meme when I first read
No,
it,
it's
'cause I
real.
was like,
It's
"There's nothing." Then I
you
was like,
can't make it
"Wait,
up.
no, this is too crazy for it to be
It's
false."
real. It's real. So having said that, we have a real problem. And the problem with our military is gonna be so it ties into your question, but it's not the same, is generational. I mean, it is the damage that Pete Hegseth is doing right now to our military will carry through for generations. Because the generals you're gonna have in 30 years, literally 30 years till you have these guys as generals, it's 30 years from now, are being shaped by his decisions now. So when he fires a black man, when he fires a woman, when he fires a woman of color, and the junior officers who are in their first 5 years of mandatory service see that, they say to themselves, "There's no place for me in this service," right? When they
Yeah,
look up the chain of command and don't see anyone that looks like them, anyone who's had the opportunity to be promoted, they say, "I'm out." And that makes a very much worse military, not just today, but in 30 years. And that should chill every American because we're not just damn it. This isn't something that can be fixed in 2 years. We are creating problems that 4 presidents from now are going to have to deal with. Okay. Our
yeah,
grandkids, my grandkids are going to deal
yeah,
with because the generals that he's creating, these white nationalists, these Christian nationalists, these kids he's bringing in now, that he's promoting, the hot dog pilots who flew over Kid Rock's house and got away with it because he got rid of it. Those are going to be flying my kids, my grandkids in 10, 20 years. And that is a crime and it's
yeah.
disgusting. So that for the rest of the world, the war in Iran must end. It is an illegal war. It's ill managed. It's not being oversight. But I always have to circle back to one thing. Remember, I'm running for Congress. I'm running for
Yes,
Congress. I'm not running against Donald Trump. I'm not running against Pete Hegseth. I'm running for Ann Wagner. And the problem I've got is that Congress has walked away from their constitutional duty of oversight, of declaring war, of declaring tariffs. I mean, Jesus, these are line item duties within the Constitution. And
yes,
my opponent, Ann Wagner, the only thing she said, she just rubber stamped this war on day one, saying, "I think it's great." Not another word since then. My opponent has not even asked for oversight of this war in any way. And she was on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Now she sits on the Intelligence Committee. I want to know what she's being told in the Intelligence Committee. I want to know if they actually have intel this war is going to end anytime soon. My opponent's not. The Republican Congress didn't even hold a hearing with the Secretary of Defense until the 60th day of the war. Okay, so for me, much of this failure all goes to Congress and their inability and their reluctance to even question Donald Trump in any way. Finally, another example. My opponent runs a thing called the Capital Markets Committee. She is the subcommittee chairwoman of the Committee on Capital Markets, like insider trading. So while we know that someone is making multi-million dollar trades, moving millions, $130 million in 15 minutes, 15 minutes before Donald Trump makes an announcement, and they're on gold oil futures. Who is it? I would think the person whose mission, her committee's mission, is to investigate market manipulation would investigate that. Oddly, not a word, not a peep, not a single public statement saying that we've seen this illegal trades, these questionable trades. So again and again, what I'm running against is the fact that the United States Congress, this Republican, what I call doormat Congress, Harry Truman's from Missouri. And when Harry Truman ran for president in 1949, he called it the Republican do nothing Congress. We have it worse now. We have a Republican doormat Congress. They're just sitting there at the door being walked across. This Republican doormat Congress is failing the American people. And I intend to go to Washington, D.C. and make Congress do its damn job.
yes, I appreciate that. I did want to ask about specifically, obviously, there's been votes in the House,
Mhm.
more in the Senate, but I would assume they would happen in the House more once Democrats take the majority on defensive and offensive weapons for Israel.
Mhm.
Um, Democrats seem to have warmed to the idea of being against offensive,
Mhm.
at least for the time being, as long as Netanyahu is in power, which could change. But they're more divided on defensive. What is your view on that?
Well,
And
I will never deny anyone the ability to defend themselves. The Iron Dome is a joint project. Certainly, they should have the Iron Dome. If it's not an defensive system, it does defend people. It's a very great technology and stuff like that. Here's what bothers me about the situation in Israel. Number one, going back to the beginning, I told you earlier, I was a West Point cadet. I go to West Point. I'm taught about this thing called the Geneva Conventions and certain things that are war crimes. For example, just one, collective punishment of a population is a war crime. Does that sound familiar right now? Is the Netanyahu government doing collective punishment of the Palestinian people over what Hamas did? Yes, right? Like
Yeah.
going to Lebanon and taking out an apartment building because it once held allegedly a Hamas bank at some point, and then flushing everyone out of there and then blowing it up is a war crime. There's just no way around that. It's letter and law. It's black and white that these are war crimes. Abusing prisoners. We now have a report this week that Palestinian prisoners were sexually abused in multiple incidents by IDF troops holding a prisoner. And the Netanyahu government has not investigated that or punished anyone. As a matter of fact, the one that was caught on camera about 6 months ago, the Netanyahu government dropped the investigation. When you have soldiers committing war crimes, you investigate it. You
Yes.
stop it. There is a way to fight war. So what I am seeing from the Netanyahu government is war crimes, and that should be punishable in a real way. And that is a problem. So if our leverage over them is management of the weapon systems we're giving them and the money we're giving them, we need to use those leverage because we only have so much leverage in the world. Instead, we went to war with them as our only ally in Iran. The only ally that went to war with us was Israel. So now we've tied ourselves to the hip at whatever Israel decides to do as far as Lebanon and Iran goes, and we have no influence anymore because they're the only ally we got in this damn war. So again and again, we're seeing a choice being made. And here's the final point I'll make. No other country that is an ally of the United States of America is given free reign like our partners in Israel, right? Ukraine, I'm telling you, brother, every bullet we drop, every weapon we ship, every missile we send is carefully inventoried, carefully laid out. It's actually monitored how they use them if they're used. This is a big thing with the Biden administration. I know this. I have friends doing it for a living, helping the Ukrainians, and every single line item is carefully managed. But Israel, couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
So I have a problem that we have a single ally in the entire world who is in very look, we know is in the middle of look, Israel has a right to exist, okay? But the same token, so does everybody else, okay? And the one thing I learned going to war, there's several things I learned going to war, but one of them was one of the hardest things a country can decide to do is to start a war. The second hardest, if not more hard, is ending a war. You have to make a decision at some point to stop killing, okay? And we learned in Iraq during the height of the very, very, what my boss, David Petraeus, called an industrial scale insurgency, that when I kill one, I create three more. You know what's radicalizing people in Iran right now? It's not the Ayatollahs. It's killing 171 girls and teachers. Okay? Maybe it was an accident. I don't know. I hope it was. I believe in my heart that our missile hit that school by accident, but we refuse to even acknowledge that it was an accident. We refuse to say that was bad. We did that wrong. That's going to radicalize a lot more Iranians than being taught that America sucks. So we have
What
to
do you
make
think?
decisions. We
Yeah.
have to make decisions. We have to decide peace is an answer. Peace can be an answer, but it takes
Yeah.
courage to do that. It takes real courage to do that. And I'm not seeing that courage right now.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that oftentimes when it comes to the Middle East, in Democratic politics, we see very much like lack of nuance no matter what side someone chooses to be on, whether it's
Yep.
like, well, everything Israel does is right, or everything Israel does is wrong, and blah 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 blah. And I think
The
that
world's not that simple, right?
the thing is, especially in the Middle East, the thing is, if it
Right.
was that simple, we would have a two-state solution. We'd have all
Right.
this. We'd have peace in the world, and um, everything would be great. But we don't have
Yeah,
that because it's
it's
not.
not that way. And look, I know everyone wants easy answers. Everyone wants yes or no. Like almost everything I've talked about in the last 50 minutes, which I do have to go soon,
Yeah.
is not everyone would love me to say yes, no, Israel bad, yes. But that's not the world, man. That's not how the world works. I've lived in the world. I've gone to war 4 times. Okay. I've fought. Nuance is my life. Okay. Living in the gray, as they call it, is what I've had to do my entire adult life. I'm just not going to sit here as a candidate for Congress and make everybody feel warm and fuzzy saying yes, no, yes, no. It's going to have to be some very hard decisions made. There's nothing harder. And final thing I love to end with, because I do have to go soon, my friend,
Yeah.
is this. Something I've been talking about a lot here on the campaign trail started when I gave a speech to the Civil Air Patrol here. They had a wonderful awards ceremony. I was honored to be able to give them a speech, not as a candidate, but as a retired colonel from the Army, lieutenant colonel. And as I prepared, it was the same day as the 35th anniversary of my 2 men that were killed in Desert Storm. Okay. A guy named Hal Reichel, and a young man named Michael. And I was thinking about that as I prepared for the speech. And I've lived with the mantle of the burden of their deaths for 35 years because that's how it works. When they talk about the mantle of leadership, that's actually from the Bible, believe it or not, or history, where the leaders would have these huge mantles. If you remember, you've seen pictures, these huge, like
Yeah.
red, it was a burden. The burden of leadership is a weight on your shoulders. That was literally when you were a leader in foreign and ancient cultures, you literally wore a heavy mantle, and that's when we talk about the burden of leadership, right? The burden of leadership means that I'm going to make decisions that may or may not send someone that I did. I am the one who made the decision to send Hal and Mike on that mission that dark night in 1991 that they did not come back from. And I have to live with that decision. By the same token, I understand that people in Congress need to understand that decisions they make, everything from deciding who gets cut off of Medicare to approving a war, right, has a burden with it that someone may lose their livelihood, their life. Someone else might die because we made a decision to go to war. 171 girls and teachers might die because of the decision we made to go to war. I just want somebody in Congress and the White House that feels the weight of that leadership. And right now, I don't believe my opponent does. I don't believe Ann Wagner feels a thing when she makes decisions like cutting Medicare, when she makes decisions like approving a war that doesn't have a plan or an end in sight. And so for me, I'm taking a lifetime of experience from 17 years old when I arrived at West Point to running a small business to help veterans, to running a COVID field hospital, to everything else, raising children, to take to this job and say, I feel the weight and I owe the people of my community and my nation to understand the weight of these decisions and take them that seriously. So, yeah, I'd love to be a yes or no kind of guy, but instead, I've lived a lifetime of knowing that nothing is that simple in the world,
I
and so
think
you
that
have to
makes a
take
lot of
that.
sense. As you said, you need to get going soon. I just wanted to say, thank you for joining us, but also, quickly tell the audience how they can support
Thank
you,
you.
website, all that
I did
information.
good. I didn't plug at every answer like I'm supposed to. Well, I mean, look, 121 folks. A lot of you, I've recognized your names. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you so much. We need your help here in Missouri. Look, I'm not going to blow smoke up yet. We have a fight on our hands, and a lot of folks are holding the while it's closed because they always think, "Oh, there's no way you can win Missouri." I'm telling you, folks. We can win Missouri. We can win this seat. We can shock the country and take over this district and and move Missouri in a very different direction. People are ready on the ground. I have Republicans and Democrats stop me every single time I go out. So we need your help. It's really easy. Wellman4mo.com. It's Wellman4mo.com. It's super easy to go there. You pop up the act. We could use your money now. We're ramping up for the summer. We're hiring folks for our field. So if you got it in you, I know times are tough right now. Tell your friends about our race. Come follow us on all of our social media channels, Wellman4mo everywhere. But this is fun. I enjoyed the opportunity to take a break and chat with you, my friend. I appreciate you inviting me to this. I know
Of
you're
course.
growing your audience. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I'm always happy to talk about the campaign. But I think we got something going on that's could be pretty powerful. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I just wanted to say, yes, subscribe to, both of our platforms.
Yep.
I noticed that very early on that I was kind of a bit of a pinch me moment when I saw that, people like, Denver Riggleman and,
Yeah.
Nick Parra joined because like, that
Nick's good people. Nick is a good
these are,
friend.
like, people that I
And Big
followed
D,
myself,
man. Big D Riggleman's a
seeing
king, man. I love him. I've been to
seeing
his.
them
If
seeing
you're in
them
Virginia, you haven't stopped by the Riggleman family distillery, you're failing.
yeah, I'm just honored that they, decided to, watch this interview and yeah, like I said, please subscribe, and I appreciate you joining, and good luck in your
Subscribe him.
campaign.
We're at fpwellman.substack.com and we're all the places. But yeah, we appreciate you, man. It's great talking to you. Safe travels coming home when you come home. Looking forward to seeing you here back on the stateside.
Of course, good luck on your campaign.
Thanks, sir. Cheers.